switching away from low margin products because to me, I just thought t-shirts and mugs and all of that stuff will do great. I looked to see what my profit was on it, and it was $70.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny.
And today we're going to talk about how Jenny has done over $20,000 in sales on her print-on-demand store. All right, thanks Jenny for joining me here on the channel. What we're trying to do is just kind of show success stories from inside of the POD Ninjas community. Jenny, can you just kind of tell everyone like where the store is at right now? Like how many total orders have you made with print-on-demand?
I've made approximately about 500 orders. And within those multiple orders, and that's probably about a little over $20,000 in sales.
Awesome. That's that's huge, right? 20,000 is nothing to kind of snub your nose at. That's really cool. In terms of how long you've been at this, I know you and I have chatted for a while. When did you start print on demand?
I probably started about maybe 3 years ago. And, again, this was pre-you, where I just had a real interest in starting up a store, and which I did, had a huge, long domain name, which I've learned from you as well to make those changes. But in my journey, I added lots of different products and lots of different designs. And as I came across your training videos, I realized that I wasn't necessarily going in the best direction. And through your guidance, I have been able to refocus my efforts and rebuild my store in a way that has generated more sales and more profits.
Sure. Now, I have been at this for 3 years, but not all of that has been like where these 500 orders are from, right? Like I know just from talking to you and working with you that there was a big period there where you were kind of like spinning your wheels, not making sales, not getting traction. How long until, you actually started to see traction with what you're doing right now?
I think once I started watching your videos and understanding how marketing works, because the reality is I am not strong in marketing at all. So, I put a store out there, but the reality is that no one would find, mystore.com without actually doing marketing. So as I learned how to actually run PPE tests and do, conversion ads, driving traffic to my store is when I really started to see the sales come in.
Awesome. We're going to dive into Jenny's marketing in a moment. She mentioned some terms like PPE testing and conversion campaigns, and those could be potentially foreign to some people. So we'll definitely dive into that. Jenny, can you talk a little bit about like what you're selling on the site? Obviously you don't have to give away your niche or your URL or anything, but is there like a best-selling product on your store right now?
Yes, absolutely. For me, the best-selling products, I have a few. Metal signs is definitely one of the things that I've been selling really well. Sneakers, backpacks, tote bags are probably at the top of my list of best sellers.
Awesome. And just so people know, I'm going to put some metal signs on the screen right now. Are you using T-Launch to sell the metal signs?
I'm using T-Launch, and I'm also using my Easy Monogram.
Awesome. And are your signs personalized?
I have some that are personalized because T-Launch requires that they're personalized.
Sure.
And so in my designs, I'm not a designer, and Joe and I can dive into this a little further, but I'm not a designer. So I, hired a designer, gave him 5 metal signs to create for me. And out of those 5, 3 of them are part of my best sellers.
Awesome. So you're having a designer make designs through T-Launch. Are you giving customers like the ability to like add their name to the sign or anything like that? Or are you just selling the design that you make?
Out of the 3 signs that are my best sellers, 2 are personalized, 1 is not.
Awesome.
And they're all selling really well.
Great. And are you just doing name personalization for the customer? Like they're adding their name to the product, or is it something else?
Pretty much they have the opportunity to add what they want. Some people add their last name. Some people, like the order that I received 2 weeks ago, it was, the first names of a couple. I guess it was a gift, like a wedding gift. So cool. I get different. Some people want the design and don't want the customization, so they'll say, please just leave it blank. So I've received that request as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the metal sign product is awesome. I remember when we were probably over a year ago at this point, when we were talking about kind of like switching some of the things you were doing, to the metal signs. There was a few other products that we talked about as well, but the metal sign is an awesome product. It's something that I think is really great for people to personalize, especially when you kind of layer in a niche with it. I think what I'd be curious about from you is, do you feel like you're able to charge like more money for the product? Like, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what your selling price is on the product with everyone.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question, because metal signs, and I was skeptical, switching away from low margin products, because to me, I just thought t-shirts and mugs and all of that stuff will do great. But once I started selling metal signs, jewelry's in there as well. But once I started selling metal signs, I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago, I sold a metal sign that was about 30 or 36 inches. I don't remember the size, but I looked to see what my profit was on it, and it was $70. The perceived value of metal signs is massive, and people are willing to pay that extra amount of money for high margin products.
Sure, I agree. Metal signs are probably, if you were to like make a list of the most profitable print on demand products, they might be number one. They're especially when you get into those larger sizes, the profit is huge. Real quick question before we talk about some of the other details of your business. Have you noticed anybody, like any customers that have had any issues with like the quality of the metal signs, or anything that has arisen in terms of just customer service issues for you?
Not at all.
Really? Cool.
It really matters the type of design that you create. Because if you create designs that have too much detail in it, especially on the edges, the way that it's packaged, unfortunately, it could get to the customer bent. So you really have to take the time to make sure that the type of design you make will withstand the shipping process. As far as custom, go ahead.
Nope. I was just going to say, the reason I asked the question is exactly that. I see a lot of people, like inside of the Print on Demand Ninjas Facebook group, they'll comment about the T-Launch metal signs. They'll hear about people having, customers that are saying that they are arriving damaged. And I think you hit the nail on the head, where if you're making a design for the metal sign and it has like too many small pieces or like really fragile parts, because this is a sheet of metal that they're cutting out in your design. And what you're recommending is that if you're doing a metal sign, make sure you're making like a sturdy design that doesn't have like small intricate details, because when that product is actually shipped, it gets banged around a little bit. And if you have really thin metal in there and it lands on its side, that metal might bend a little bit. That's what you're talking about, right?
Specifically on the outer edges of the design. If you make it too thin or have too many little marks, those are definitely, subject to change. As far as on customer service, so I've consistently received 5 stars on my metal signs. With My Easy Monogram, they have the designs that they're thicker. The metal is thicker for My Easy Monogram. They, they did have a problem with shipping, but they actually switched to a different supplier. So now they're shipping their metal signs 3 to 5 days.
Wow, great. How long is T-Launch approximately?
T-Launch is maybe about 7 business days.
From order to when the product is delivered?
No, from order to where the product is shipped.
Okay.
So the customer usually
seven business days.
So the customer will get it. Now, once it ships, the customer gets it within 2 or 3 days. So I do get customers asking me, hey, Jenny, will I be able to get this design at this date? And most of the time, I can tell them yes, because most customers tend to be reasonable, in their expectations of a custom metal sign.
Now, let's kind of recap. About 500 orders, a little over 20,000 in sales. Sounds like you have a couple of winning designs that you've sort of identified, that you talked about. You hired a designer to make those 5 for you, and it sounds like 3 of them, based on what you said, are kind of like the best sellers. Before we talk about like marketing and like how much time you're spending on everything, maybe people are watching and they want to hear a little bit about hiring a designer. How did you find find your designer? If you want to just tell people that might be looking for a designer, how they could potentially find one.
It was definitely a painful process.
Yep.
There are a lot of recommendations of going
Sure.
to Freelancer, going to Fiverr, and other places.
Sure.
The biggest recommendation that I would make is probably go out to Freelancer and run a contest and say, hey, you're looking for something, and you'll get 50 different designers that'll attempt to make whatever design it is. And you could probably catch on and narrow down and say, wow, this person looks like they really have some skills. So that would be one way to kind of narrow it down, instead of going the path that I did. Is I would just hire designers and then realize that they are not capable of actually doing what I was looking for. Thankfully, I have one main designer that can do a lot of complex things for me, but he has his store, he's busy. So if I have simple designs, I have, another designer that I also use.
Awesome. How much time would you say per day are you spending on your print on demand business in general? And then we'll dive into like what you're actually doing. But just in general, like if you were to throw out a number, like 1 hour, 2 hours a day, what would it be?
Like maybe 6 hours.
Okay, so you're into it.
I am totally into it. I love designs. I love looking at new products. I love looking at my store and seeing how I can improve upon it, doing the training to make sure I've got the latest up to date, which again, thank you so much for Pod University. There's a lot of really good information for people like me who have already gone through a lot of the older courses, and there's a lot of fresh new material in there, how to lay out your store. So there's always something that you can improve upon on your store.
So you have a lot of fun with it. You're the type that kind of reminds me of me in a sense where sometimes, maybe I don't need to spend the time, but like I have fun doing it, and I like going in there and improving the site, or, just thinking about designs or researching products, or, just looking at ad stuff. Like how much time do you think you would need to spend on your business? Because people are watching, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, she's spending 6 hours a day. Like I don't have 6 hours a day. Like let's break it down a little bit, right? How much time per day on strictly just like customer service do you think you spend?
30 minutes. Less than that. I mean, it's nothing.
Sometimes nothing, right? Some days no customer inquiries at all to answer.
Right. It's more of an on-call basis. And I will say that, we live in a bot world where customers really want to get to a human on the other side. And they honestly appreciate, sometimes I'll be watching TV and my phone will go off and I'll see it's a customer asking me a question about a metal sign or something. And just the fact that I was able to respond back, next thing I know, I hear a cha-ching. So if I receive like 10 messages from customers, out of those 10, 8 of them result in orders.
Awesome. And what I'm trying to do is paint maybe like a more accurate picture of what time is actually required to run a POD business, minus the time of us having like fun and like being in there for hours a day. And so 30 minutes or so on customer service. How about like ads, right? Marketing, different things that you're actively doing with social media and stuff like that. How much time per day on some of that stuff?
For someone that doesn't have as much time as I do, you can put together a PPE or a campaign in, 15 minutes or so once you know what design you want to use. So the reality is overall, maybe an hour at the most for pretty much everything. If you want to add a design, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's you checking on marketing campaigns, on ad campaigns, making sure that they're still running, that there's, no major issues with them, that their performance hasn't tanked or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say about an hour, at the most 2 hours. You don't really need to spend that much time, even with the building of your store, that's still, you can break it up into pieces and it's not really hard. I see online people, asking, hey, I'm willing to pay someone to build my store. And I'm going, why? It's not, you don't pay someone $300 when, give a little bit of time and you can build a really nice, professionally looking store yourself.
No, I completely agree. I see people all the time that say, oh, should I hire someone? And I said, well, why don't you first like give it a shot? There's a lot of training that I have on YouTube. I have the free POD for Dummies course. I always just tell people, go through it, give it a shot. And then if you try and you still can't do it, okay, well then you might want to consider maybe hiring someone. But one joke I always make too, Jenny, is if you have been able to figure out how to like make yourself a Facebook account or something like that, you can likely figure out building a Shopify site.
Absolutely agree.
Cool. So we've talked about where the store is at. We've talked about how much time. Let's talk money again. How much are you spending spending like on a daily basis on like ads?
I honestly just do the $1 a day.
Awesome. And
Drives
that
the
works
traffic.
and that works for you.
It drives the traffic to my store. They see the product and the niche that go really well together. And I liked how you categorize the bragging niche and the humble, quiet niche.
Yep.
And it really reinforces it, because my products definitely show when I had a certain niche and I tried to make it into that bragging niche. I didn't get very many sales, but when I made it into that humble, quiet niche, they were flying off the shelf. So I appreciate you bringing that up in your training, because it definitely reinforces the sales that I'm getting as to why I'm getting them. Yes.
For everyone watching, like the humble versus the bragging niche is, you know, one of the big things that I try to teach is like Jenny said earlier, like trying to get away from, you know, t-shirts and mugs, right? And then the question is, well, what do I sell to my niche? And the way that I've kind of broken it down in what Jenny's talking about is there are different types of niches. Some of them are bragging niches. Some of them are more humble niches. And if you have a bragging niche, that's like a niche that's, you know, it's not a negative thing that it's a bragging niche, but it's like a really proud niche. It's a niche that wants to like show off and like let others know that they're a member of the niche, right? So you want to select products that allow them to do that, you know, different types of apparel or something for the car or something for the outside of the house. And what Jenny's saying is this more humble niche, well, that's when you can get to, you know, some of the more home decor products, right? Or some print on demand pajamas or a bathrobe or something like that. And Jenny, you're saying that once you really realize that about your niche, you're able to choose stuff that they want to buy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
And making the sales to go with it. So it definitely proves the concept.
Awesome. What would you say, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, if you were to talk through maybe like something that you would advise, you know, someone who's just starting print on demand to do, right? Let's say you're talking to me, right? Let's say that I'm interested in POD. I'm sitting here, I'm watching you, and I'm hearing you talk about, you know, making your over 500 orders, over 20,000 in sales. You're doing some marketing, you're creating some designs with a designer, and I want to get started with that. But for whatever reason, I can't make progress. What would be your advice? And I know I'm putting you on the spot. It's a very broad question, but just in general, what would be one thing you would recommend me to do?
I would say, especially since when I started, before I actually, you know, started watching your videos, the low margin products, the t-shirts, I mean, you're putting in just as much work to upload a design and products and price it on a t-shirt as you would a high margin product, like a blanket hoodie, hooded blanket, a metal sign. So here we are both together side by side, you know, taking an hour, 2 hours of our time to add these products. We both get a sale. Your profit is $2 and mine is $50, $60. Do you really want to use all of that time on low margin products? I mean, it's something that, you know, it's something that I have just gotten away from. And I'll tell you right now, you'll be so proud of me. I have 0 t-shirts in my store right now.
Wow.
I literally have probably, I'll say 70% of my store is metal signs now.
Awesome.
Because it's what's working. It's the direction that I'm going. I may go into product-based a store, like you mentioned in your training, because to me, for the niche that I'm working in, that works. You know, to go and put, you know, t-shirts, like I said before, and have it be 80% of your store, to me, with the amount of time that you're putting in, I just don't recommend it.
Sure. I think just to contextualize some of that, because some people might be watching this and that might be the first time they're hearing it. You know, sometimes, you know, people aren't used to me saying don't sell shirts because they watch print on demand content, and that's what 90% of print on demand content, you know, is about. And it's not that people don't buy shirts. It's really like you were just saying, it's about your time. If you're selling shirts and you want to make $1,000 in profit per month, you're going to need a lot of sales, a lot more compared to the amount of sales that you're going to need to make $1,000 in profit, or that I'm going to need, or anyone else that is selling a higher profit print on demand product. You can literally choose other products, and to your point, you're doing it with the same niches, the same design strategies, the same amount of time that goes into it, the same marketing strategies too, but you're making 5 times or 10 times the profit. And also too, I think sometimes certain niches are a lot less saturated when you get into other products too. You know, if you're choosing a niche, there could be like 1 million t-shirt designs out there for that niche. And if you did metal signs instead, maybe you might be like one of the only people doing that, and you can really break through. So I completely agree. And I think that's great advice. I appreciate the time, Jenny. I hope that people watching this are getting something out of this. And, you know, like I said, I appreciate your time. I know it's maybe sometimes scary to come on here, but awesome stuff. I enjoyed talking today. And again, thank you.
And thank you again for having me, inviting me here. Thank you for your training, keeping it fresh, and I hope that anyone that's watching or listening, like I said, just continue with the training. Don't let yourself get stuck, in one area. If you're a designer or if you're into creating different things, make sure that you do all the parts of it. You've got to, yes, you have to do the design. Yes, you have to work on your store, but you got to get out there and market. You're not going to get sales if you don't get out and market. So make sure that you give enough time to all the areas to be able to get those sales. And I wish everyone the best.
Awesome. Thanks again.